Hey everybody, it's Derek. We're back in the Hammock Lab, and today I want to show you how to do surgery on the end of a hammock to put on some continuous loops. So I had a few folks ask me about this recent trip I made to Goblin Valley. And if you've been to Goblin Valley in southern Utah, you know it's a beautiful spot, but there's no trees, no place to really hang a hammock except for in the campground on the pavilion. Now, if you've been faced with something like this before, where you've got a pavilion or a spot that has really narrow posts or anchor points where you can put a hammock, the pavilion that we were at had about 10 feet between the posts. And I'd kind of planned ahead for that, but I did have some hammocks like this one here that was a little longer. A 10-foot hammock or 11-foot hammock is just a little too long to, well, they actually will fit just fine once they're hung in the hammock, but they're right at the ends. You only have a few inches in order to clip on your hammock. So in order to span that tiny little distance, having a suspension system or a method to hang is really important. Now, what I had on this hammock, this was one I was testing, and it had a whoopee sling that was already connected to the end into the channel. It's about 12 inches of dead space that I can't use, and I had to span just inches. So one way to minimize how much distance you have is you can take where the buried eye is all the way to where the tail comes out. And if you can actually wrap that around the end of a hammock before you loop it through. In this case, though, the eye has already been fixed right into the end of that hammock, so I couldn't really loop it around the end of the hammock to kind of eat up that distance. So what I ended up doing is I took some of the tail. Now on a whoopee sling, this one is about I think a 6-foot whoopee sling, which is usually a lot more than I ever need, and in this case was way more. So I took the tail end and I trimmed off about 12 inches of extra am steel, and I tied this small continuous loop, and I just used double fisherman knots on the end to make this work. And again, this was a last minute kind of effort to make this work, but I took that continuous loop, and on the end of this hammock, I bunched it up. And you could do just a simple lark's head, like this. And that lark's head can then, it extended just an inch or two outside of the end of the hammock. I could also wrap it another time. And depending on how big that loop is and how close I needed it, then I've got this tiny little loop right at the end of the hammock, and that was perfect for allowing me to sling on this hammock to the post. There are some hardware devices that are pretty small, like there's a Dutchware beaner that's maybe an inch, a little bit over an inch long, and that probably could have worked. If I hook on a carabiner or something to then attach to a strap, you can see that the more hardware devices, the more pieces of interference between the end of my hammock and the suspension just kind of defeats the purpose. I needed to have a suspension method that allowed me to adjust right up to the end of the post. Let me show you how I did that with the Beckett hitch. All right, let me show you real quick how this is done. Here's the continuous loop on the hammock. Here's my strap. I'm going to go up through the loop with my strap. I can adjust it now as close as I need to. I go around the back of the loop and then through that strap that I've made. That's the Beckett hitch. This is a slippery Beckett hitch. And to loosen it, all I need to do is push down on this continuous loop toward the strap, and I can pull that loop free. Really easy.